In this video I'm going to review the most expensive round wound strings that I've ever seen or bought. Hey guys, I'm Tyler and welcome back to the channel. If you're tuning in for the first time, take a look around, watch this video, and if it's helpful to you, give it a like and consider hitting that subscribe button and that notification bell. So, as the little intro said, in this video I'm going to be reviewing these, which is the Thomastik Powerbass strings. This is a 5-string set, so I'm going to be putting them on my MTD AG5 bass. These are the most expensive strings I've got, so I thought I'd put them on the most expensive bass that I've got. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to line these Powerbass strings up and also compare them to the Dunlop Super Brights that I've currently got on the MTD. So these Dunlop Super Brights aren't new by any means. They've actually been on this bass for quite a while. But they're kind of my test bass. I know what these strings sound like and I know how they are as they age. So I thought it'd just be interesting to put them next to each other and see what the feel differences were and the sound differences once they're recorded, and just give you something different to watch, you know, rather than just the strings in isolation, seeing if these really do sound a lot better. Typically I like my strings quite bright, hence the super bright strings. These will probably be quite bright for most people still, but for me they're starting to feel a little bit on the dead side, but I just thought I'd put that out there now before I say anything else. So these Powerbass strings are the most expensive strings I've ever bought, and they're pretty much the most expensive bass strings I've ever seen on the market. These are made in Austria, so they probably are a little bit cheaper for me here in the UK, being closer to Europe than they would be in the States. The reason I bought these strings was I was in the guitar centre. They had the rep in for Barnes & Noble, who distribute Aguilar here in the UK, and they distribute Thomastik strings and a few other different brands. But yeah, I was talking to their rep Andy, and he said that these were the best bass strings that he'd ever used and was really enjoying them, and he's a bass player himself. So I took it on his word while I was there, and then, you know, I just happened to be in there at the same time as he was, and just told them to get a set in with the guitar they were already ordering or buying from him. So I got them in, and this is the first test with them, the first go on them. As I said, he thought these were the best bass strings he'd ever used, so I thought I'd put that to the test with you guys in this video. Now this one's a bit of a fun one for me because I obviously haven't opened these yet. I don't know what they sound like. Normally with the reviews I do, I have a chance to play with the product, see what it's like, and so on. Whereas with these, I haven't had that chance yet, so it's going to be all straight up first reactions, how I think they are, how they feel, and you're going to see that all straight in this video. In terms of the specs of these strings, it's all a little bit mysterious. They don't actually say what they're made of. We know that they have a hex core steel center, so the core in the center of the string is a hex core and it's made of steel. Beyond that, we don't know what the material is that they're made of, so whether they're nickel plated or if they're stainless steel. But I probably will be able to tell that and let you know that, because if they are stainless steel, they will start to shred my fingers, because at the minute I've been playing nickel strings, so we'll start to get a little bit more abrasion on the fingers, and then we'll know. So hopefully this video will serve that purpose. Other specs about these strings are that they come in quite a strange range of gauges. So the MTD currently has on the a 6-string set without the high C of the Dunlop Nickel Super Brights. So these strings on the MTD are 130 up to 45. So it's the kind of medium gauge within the Dunlop Super Bright range. The gauges on these, on the other hand, it's going to be 119 on the B string, 107 on the E, so it's thicker than most normal E strings, 80 on the A string, which is kind of fairly typical for a medium or light set, 68 on the D string, which is an odd gauge to me, and then 47 on the top. So the gauge range there is a little bit odd. They're kind of heavier on the top than a typical set, but then on the B string they're lighter, so 119 is pretty light for a B string. So that's enough chat about the strings. What I'm going to do is put these strings on, give you an idea of exactly how they feel, how they are first on. Then I'm going to do the demo, compare the Super Brights to these Thomastiks, and then overall just going to round out my opinions on these strings, whether I think they are worth the money or if they are just one very expensive string without any real reason. So here we are, the strings are on the bass. I'm going to give you my first impressions of these strings, so just to have a little bit of a play. First thing I noticed is that they're pretty smooth, so the actual feeling on the string itself is a little bit softer than you'd find on a typical round wound string. I think they're nickel plated rather than steel wrapped. They just feel that little bit softer under the fingers. I'm just going to play a little bit of a riff thing to give you an idea of how they sound soloed. I don't think these are the most tense round wound strings I've ever used, but they're definitely more on the tense side in comparison to the Dunlops. I think the bottom end is pretty round and fat. I quite like that. Definitely a little bit more punch, I think, than the Super Brights. A little bit more mid-range clarity and push through. Switch to the front pickup. Definitely kind of a classic P-bassy tone there, pretty nice. Just moving to the back pickup. Quite surprising be that in the fact that despite the fact it's a thinner gauge, I think it's actually quite fat. It's got a real nice tightness to it. It doesn't feel too floppy. I think it would be, I thought it would have been a little bit floppier, but I actually think it's a little bit more punchy than on the Super Bright strings. I think chords have a real nice clarity to them, quite a lot of definition between the notes. The one thing I would say is that these strings are definitely not as bright as Dunlop Super Brights. I think the first thing you kind of notice is that there's a very warm sense to these strings with some clarity and definition, but it's kind of like a very top end air, like you would add to a vocal, kind of that 10k, just a little bit of definition at the very top, rather than kind of, I think with a Super Bright string you get kind of a lot more top end throughout the range, almost like the brightness starts at kind of a lower frequency, kind of around 3k, and goes right the way up. With these you have got the brightness, which gives you that clarity and definition, but they definitely sound more like a worn-in string than a brand new string that's super fresh and then going to lose its brightness. So you've heard the strings soloed. Let me know what your thoughts are on them in the comments below. I think it'd be really interesting to see who would be interested in putting these on their bass at this point in time, just based on the sound alone in a solo setting. So at this point I'm just going to go into the head-to-head comparison and give you an idea of how these strings sound next to the Dunlop Super Brights that were on the bass before. So you've heard the strings both solo and in a mix with some drums. Let me know what your thoughts are below. Do you think these strings are just overpriced, or do you think actually that they are a really good string and that maybe you want them on your bass? I'm going to give you my views on them right now. Overall, I don't think I would buy these strings again at this point. Obviously this is day one, they've gone on fresh. I'm going to spend a bit more time with them and I will update with another video and just kind of round out my thoughts overall. But at this point in time, I think they are a really nice string. I think they're very clear and they do feel like a really high quality product. I definitely feel like when you go from, you know, one string brand to another, say kind of like an average flat wound to a labella flat wound, for example, you can really tell the difference in how they're constructed. They feel great. And I think this is kind of a similar thing with these strings. They definitely feel like great strings. The way they're produced, they're manufactured, and the way that they're packaged and so on makes it feel like a high quality product and that you are kind of getting something for your money's worth. However, for me and the way I like to play, I'm kind of very used to the Dunlop Super Bright thing. I really like a low tension string, and the tension on these strings is definitely higher. I think particularly when you're playing up across the top of the neck, right in the upper range, there's just that little bit more tension that I don't quite like as much. I like a little bit more flexibility to be able to do the bends right up on the kind of high notes. You can bend with them, but it's just a little bit more than I want to get into. I think for kind of lower register playing and really solid foundation work, they sound really good. There is a lot of punch and definition right there fresh out of the box, just how you want it. If you're playing with a pick, I don't really think these strings strike me as something that would be a great string for that. They're a good string, but I don't think they would really lend themselves to that any better than something that's a bit cheaper. I think when it comes to the Slapstar stuff, they are a little bit muted in the high end. You get a really nice thump on the bottom, but I just don't think that the top end is quite cutting enough for some of those classic slap sounds. I think overall they're a great string. I think the problem for me is that they're just a little bit overpriced for what I would want from a string. For that kind of price, I'd want it to be the perfect package for me. And when I'm kind of with this bass, I want to play up in the higher register as well, do some of the chordy stuff like I've shown you, as well as play down the bottom, the Slapstar stuff, all of it. And for me, I think with the Dunlop Super Brights, you have the option to roll off that brightness and do a variety of different things with it. Whereas with these, there's only so much brightness there and you can't add any more. The preamp on my MTD, I have it almost pretty much full up on the treble already. So there's not really much more there to give. They're already kind of as bright as they'll go. And for me, I'd rather have that brightness and tame it than not have quite as much. Overall, these are definitely a super high quality string. I can totally see where the value is and how they are a good string for a lot of things. But for what I'm used to and how I'm used to the Dunlops, day one I probably wouldn't go for these again, just based on the value versus what the strings can do. If they were the perfect string for me, no doubt, straight away, just felt amazing, I probably wouldn't worry about the price so much and would be willing just to keep using these based on that factor alone. But for me, I think the Dunlops offer closer to what I like. As I say, I am used to them, but closer to what I think I want from a string for a lot less money. So those are my thoughts on these strings day one. I'll chime back in again with a different video and keep you guys updated. Also check out on my Instagram, which I'll link below, because I will definitely kind of post updates and playing on there with these strings, so you'll see how they sound over time and as they age. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on the sound. Do you think they sounded better than the Dunlop strings, and would they be something that you would want to put on your bass? So that's my day one review and all you need to know about the Thomastik Powerbass strings. Definitely some features to look out for in there and some surprises with how the strings react and the sizes and things like that. But perhaps not my overall favourite string straight away, but let's see how I get on over time. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you haven't already, consider hitting that like button and hit that subscribe button and notification bell if you want to keep up to date with the latest from my channel and all the videos that I do. I do gear reviews like this every single Tuesday, so check those out. Thank you so much for watching and I'll see you around soon.